Hi, so in this lecture we're going to look at the respiratory system. So the way my lectures work is, if I'm writing something on the board, do you mind copying that? And then any extra information which you feel like, oh, this is worth noting, but I'm not necessarily explicitly writing it down, still do that. So any diagrams, things like that, even if you're not brilliant at drawing, but still have a go. I try to kind of simplify those diagrams. And the reason why I get people to draw diagrams and to write stuff down is because I think when you are taking your own notes, it does help you to remember afterwards, because it does kind of create connections in your brain, and you will find the information easier to recall afterwards. Okay? So as I said, we are looking at the respiratory and cardiac unit. So respiratory and cardiac unit. So as mentioned before, this is 6 credit. I think you've got it written down already, so this is credit. And the first assignment in this unit is all about respiratory system, so that's what we're basically looking at today. So in this lecture we're starting to look at respiratory system, structure and function. Which is going to be essentially the title of your first assignment, so it's going to be assignment 1. Alright, so my first question, very simple. Why do you need respiratory system? And those of you watching on the video have to scratch your head as well and try to tell me what your respiratory system is for. Anybody's got any suggestions?
Respiration.
Well, respiration. When you say respiration, what do you mean exactly?
Keep us alive. Keep us alive.
Keep us alive. So let's start with the simple stuff. So why do we need respiratory system? And you're right. You know, you can start with this fairly straightforward answer, which is to keep us alive, and then. Here you had a suggestion, well, this is for respiration, but then I'm trying to kind of dig a little bit deeper. So what is respiration? When you say respiration, what
bring oxygen into the body, and oxygen, you need oxygen to make your brain work, you need oxygen for your muscles, you need...
Okay, good. So we started with keeping us alive, right? Breathing in and out. So let's write down some of these points. So keeping us alive, to breathe in and out. Right, here at this point you have more specific suggestion that we're breathing in some oxygen.
Yes.
What are we breathing out?
Carbon dioxide.
Right, okay, so let's write this down. So we're talking about oxygen here and carbon dioxide. Okay, cool. Terry, you had a suggestion.
Is it also to do with my energy?
Right. And here we get into the proper nitty-gritty stuff, because it's not just to breathe and not just to keep us alive. The question is, well, how does the breathing keep us alive exactly? And the key bit of information that we need to breathe in and out in order to produce energy. Okay? So we need respiration to produce energy. Okay? So this bit, keeping us alive, breathe in and out, this is slightly low level, right? So key stage 3 GCSE. But when you get to producing energy, then that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, a little bit more sophisticated with the answers, right? So when I say respiration, or more specifically aerobic respiration, does that ring a bell? Aerobic respiration? Okay,
Aerobic.
Yeah, aerobic. So let me just write it down. So aerobic respiration. What is aerobic respiration? Does anybody have any idea or suggestion?
That way you use oxygen to produce energy.
Right, exactly. So this is a chemical process taking place in your cells. And before I go any further, which particular part of a cell? Does anybody have suggestion where specifically respiration takes place in your cell? Where is it?
Mitochondria.
Mitochondria. Spot on. So those of you who just started the course, wait until you get to cell biology, and then you'll talk about mitochondria there. So it takes place in mitochondria. Just a quick question as well. Mitochondria, is that plural or singular? Can anybody remember? Is that many or just one of them? Any idea? Many, absolutely. So this is plural. What about singular? If I wanted to talk about a single one, single organelle, what's the word for that? Absolutely right, mitochondrion. So mitochondrion will be singular. Just one. So it takes place in your cells, and specifically mitochondria. And this process is designed to produce energy. This process is designed to produce energy. And in which form do we store this energy? Does anybody have a suggestion about that one? Terry, you seem to be smiling on.
Is it ATP?
ATP. So this energy is stored in a particular molecule called ATP. So I'm going to write it in the bracket as well. ATP. Okay. Any idea what ATP stands for? I'm pushing it slightly here. No? No? Okay, Terry knows. Okay, so ATP stands for...
Maybe, is it adenine triphosphate?
It's absolutely right. So it's adenine triphosphate, which is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? So it's adenine triphosphate. Right, so here is your A, here is your T, here is your P. ATP. So that's the name of that molecule, which is used essentially a bit like a rechargeable battery. So you're producing energy, you charge your molecules of ATP so they keep that energy for when you need it. So then ATP goes to wherever it needs to be to pass this energy and make some kind of process happening. So maybe muscle contraction or your neurons passing a message. So that's how that process is going to work. Okay. Have you ever talked about ATP in a little bit more detail, or is that a bit of a new information for some of you?
We have done about it before.
You've done it about it before, okay. So just for people watching on the videos, just a few extra words then. So the tri bit, what does that mean?
3.
3, okay. And 3 of what exactly? What's that bit mean?
Phosphates.
Just phosphates, right? So something which contains an element called
Phosphorus.
phosphorus. Okay, so there's a bit of a molecule which contains phosphorus. Oh, missed out the letter here. Phosphorus. You can check on Google, see if I spelled it correctly. I'm not perfect, you know. So it's a molecule which contains 3 bits of phosphorus. So when you chip one away, this is when energy gets released. And when you combine the 3 of these phosphates together, that's where you're storing energy. So you constantly, your body goes in the process of, we produce this energy, we're going to store it in ATP, create those connections between phosphates. Whenever you need to release this energy, you're going to break those bonds, and that energy is going to be used in your body. Okay, cool. Can I wipe some of this off and then free up a little bit of space? can we have a go at writing word equation of aerobic respiration? If you don't mind, I'm just going to say AR, right? So I don't have to write the whole word aerobic respiration again and again. So word equation for aerobic respiration. So what do I need to combine with what to make ATP or to make energy? What's going to be at the beginning of this equation? Any idea too? You remember we started off by saying that we need respiratory system to produce energy. So we need respiration, respiratory system to participate in aerobic respiration. So therefore, what's going to be one of the ingredients we need to produce energy? Let's think about it logically.
Oxygen?
Together. Oxygen, absolutely right. So you're going to take some oxygen, and then I need to combine it with something else. It's not enough just to have oxygen to produce energy. So I need to add it, so I'll put a plus, to another important ingredient. Any idea what that second ingredient might be?
Is it ADP or not yet?
No, that's when you already have energy, right? And you're just storing it in ATP, so it's not quite that. Right, so we're breathing, and what else we're doing? Go on, people on the video. I hope somebody is shouting on the other side of the screen by now. So we also eat, right. So what's probably the most important molecule which you use to produce energy, which is something you get through eating food? Any idea at all? Shall I just tell you then? Okay, so it is, how about first letter?
Oh, glucose.
There you go. Okay, so then I need glucose. And then combining these two together, they're going to turn through chemical process, through the magic of aerobic respiration and mitochondria. They're going to turn into something else. So here is my arrow to show that these two ingredients combined are going to become something else. And then the question is well, what do they become? Well, first of all, they become, because that's what this whole thing was about, wasn't it? To produce energy. So they are going to become energy or ATP, if you want to use sort of, well, let's put energy as a word for now. Okay? Oh, actually, do you mind I put it at the end? Because it's more kind of customary, if you like, when you start looking at books to have it right at the end. But I also, as well as energy, as well as the good stuff, I'm also producing a couple of waste products. Any suggestions what those waste products might be?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide, that's spot on. Plus one other thing. Something else. One more ingredient, which is a waste product.
It's not water, is it?
It is water, absolutely spot on, it's water.
Could you think of mist from your mouth, like it steams up, like
Right,
when you
okay.
breathe out, that's what comes out.
Yeah, absolutely, right. So carbon dioxide and water and energy. So for those of you who finding it a little bit harder, particularly people who just started the course, right on the other side of my screen, we can think about this chemical equation as if it was a process of, let's say, making a cake, right? So you start off with a couple of ingredients, a few ingredients, I don't know, flour, butter, eggs. You mix them together, you stick it in the oven, right? And you get, that's the magic of something becoming something else, that's the aero bit. It turns into good stuff, into cake, or energy in this case, but you also end up with some waste, right? So eggshells, some wrappers for the butter, something you want to get rid of. And so in essence, even though it might look fairly complicated, but if you think about it in these terms, it's actually a pretty straightforward process, right? Take oxygen, glucose, turn it into carbon dioxide and water, and then energy. So here is another thing I want you to think about. Look, this equation gives the reasons for all sorts of different systems in your body. This is why we breathe. This is why we eat. This is why we breathe out. And this is why we sweat and wee. Right? And all of this is to make that equation possible. Right? All of this is designed to produce energy or to produce ATP. Okay? Make sense? Right. So what I'd like you to do next is a couple of jobs. First of all, I'd like you to convert this into chemical equation. So use proper chemical symbols. So let's have a go at this together. So those of you who are watching video, I'd like you to pause at this point and use your notes from we did levels of organization. So you should have some formulas for these components. And those of you who are still now in class, let's have a go at it together, right? So chemical equation. Of anaerobic respiration of AR. Right, just going to go round. So, Abby, oxygen as a formula. What am I writing here? Any idea at all? Okay, O is a good start. Missing something though. O2. Okay, perfect. So that's going to be our oxygen. Right, so people behind the screen, I think they're a bit more clued on because I did actually lecture on that. Those of you in class, let's have a go at it. O2, is this an atom or a molecule? Any idea at all?
Molecule.
It's a molecule. How do you know it's a molecule? Is there any way of telling by just looking at the formula?
Because it's more, because there's a 2 there.
It's 2 atoms of oxygen combined together. So that 2, it tells you that it's 2 of those oxygens combined together. And as long as you have more than 1 atom bonded together, that's a molecule.
The science
so that
from 8 years ago is coming back to me.
That tells you it's a molecule of oxygen. Right, so dealt with oxygen. Plus, okay. Have to ask Kira, any idea what the formula for glucose is? I'm sort of getting onto pretty tricky territory here. Again, those of you who are watching, you should know, or you should at least be able to find the notes with the correct answer. No? Okay, anybody able to help Tom? Okay, fine. So, glucose is C6H12O6. It's kind of, I mean, you don't have to memorize it, but it's handy to know because it comes up an awful lot in different contexts.
And it helps you to understand on another level.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So the way you remember it, so obviously C, can you tell me what C is? Carbon. H is
hydrogen.
Hydrogen, O we already came across, that's an oxygen. Same question as before, molecule or atom?
Molecule.
Molecule, same reasons as before, several atoms bonded together. Right, how many atoms do I have in one molecule of glucose?
24.
24, spot on. So all you're doing is adding everything up. So that 6 tells you there are 6 atoms of carbon, 12 atoms of hydrogen, 6 atoms of oxygen. So those numbers belong to the letter right in front of it, right? So it doesn't belong to the whole formula, it just belongs to that particular atom, refers to the number of that particular atom. Right, so that's your glucose. So that whole thing is going to turn into Terry, carbon dioxide. Fairly straightforward.
CO2.
CO2. CO2. Abby, how many atoms? 2. Count. Try again. That 2 belongs to oxygen. If you don't have any number at all, it means it's just 1 by default. So instead of writing it like this, They just drop that one. Yeah, so if there is no number, it tells you there is one. So therefore there are 3 atoms of, yeah, 1 atom of carbon, 2 atoms of oxygen to make carbon dioxide. Okay. Laura, water, another straightforward one.
H2O.
H2. Terry, how many atoms?
3.
3. Okay. And now we can write our energy as a kind of, we're not going to write the formula of ATP, we're just going to say, use the 3 letters, ATP, right? Because there are lots of atoms there, so they just use abbreviation in books for level 3. So that's our chemical equation. So all we've done here is we converted each of the words into proper chemical formula. There is, however, a bit of a problem with it at the moment, right? Let's see. How many oxygens do we have on this side? How many oxygens are we combining together in total?
8.
Yeah, absolutely right. 6 here, 8. How many do I have on this side? 3. How many hydrogens do I have on this side?
12.
12, and on that side?
2.
2. What about carbons?
6.
6 on this side.
1 on that
Just
side.
1 on this side, right? So it's a bit like you put in a kilogram of butter, a kilogram of flour, and a dozen of eggs, and when you put your cake to be baked, and you open the oven, and there is cake which is that big. And you think, well, what about the rest of it? Hold on a minute, I put all this stuff in, why am I getting so little back? So it doesn't work like this in nature. Whatever you're putting in, it might get, you know, mixed around and converted somehow, but you're supposed to get the same amount back out. You might ask, well, what about ATP? ATP is just your rechargeable battery. It doesn't actually take any of the atoms with it. All it does, it stores the energy you're going to get as a result of this process. So, a bit of a challenge then for all of you. We're going to try to balance this equation. Now, this is not something you would routinely be required to do in the course, but it's useful to be able to do it when you get to university. Okay? So, what you can do when you're balancing equations. Anybody ever had a go at balancing equations in the past?
I did
So,
it in
okay, fine.
So,
So what you're allowed to do is put any number in front of any of your molecules. That's your choice, right? Any number you like. I can put 2 here, I can put 3, I can put 6, literally any number you like. And you need to find a combination of numbers which would then balance that equation up. So let me give you an example. Let's say, let me just free up a little bit of space, let's see here. Let's say I've got water, H2O. So in this scenario I have 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Do you agree with that? Yeah? If I put, let's say, 3 in front of H2O, that means I have 3 lots of H2O. And that would mean that I've got 6 hydrogens, so it's like 3 multiplied by 2, because it's 3 lots of 2 hydrogens, so 6, and 3 oxygens. Can you see how it works? So by changing those numbers, you can change the number of atoms you have on each side of your equation. And all you need to do is just go about it in a logical way, okay? So my suggestion is try to equalize. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a clue. So do carbons first, then do hydrogens next, and your third step is going to be to work out oxygens. Okay? And now, Laurie, I want you to pause, and I will ask others on the video to